Hey y'all, welcome to Midweek Minis, also known as Ignorant Hicks Talk About Movies. I'm Mitch Lawrence, and that's my wife, Leah Lawrence.
Hi?
You don't seem too thrilled about that one.
No?
That's what we're calling it, starting this week. This will be Ignorant Hicks Talk Movies number 1.
I don't think I'm either of those things. Thank you very much.
Which one, films
Huh?
or talking?
What?
Never
I'm
mind.
Confused.
Leah, what are we going to talk about this week?
First, I kind of want to address sort of what's been going on just nationally first. We even kind of debated whether or not it was appropriate for us to be putting out content, just the state of the world being what it is right now.
Yeah.
We, just for the record, 100% support the Black Lives Matter movement, and we believe that that is 100% true. We believe that black people are people, go figure, and they should have all of the rights that white people have always enjoyed. And we believe that about all people, regardless of their race, their gender, their gender identity, their sexuality. A person's a fucking person, man. So that's where we're coming at it. But of course, we're very white people living in the Deep South. So, like I said, we're not exactly the experts on this subject. So I do want to say that there are a few podcasts that are produced by black people that talk about sort of what it's like to experience being a person of color in the United States. I specifically really enjoy it's a podcast from NPR, and it's called Code Switch, and it is very interesting, very informative, just sort of has different perspectives on what it's like to be a person of color in the United States. Mm-hmm. Every week it's a different sort of take on that, and like I said, it is hosted and produced by people of color, and I really enjoy that. It's eye-opening. And then I also, there's another podcast, I don't remember which network it's on. It might be Earwolf or Luminary, one of those, but it's a podcast that's hosted by a black woman and an Asian man, and it's called Yo, Is This Racist? And they take calls.
Yeah, I think that is Earwolf. I remember hearing about it. I've never listened to it, but I have heard about it.
It's really good. It's very enlightening. Some of the ignorance of people just is mind-blowing, but like I said, they deal with the topic in a humorous, educational way, and, white guilt is hard to deal with, and if you think that sort of easing yourself into that world with comedy is useful, because it was for me, I highly recommend Yo, Is This Racist? Or Yo, Is That Racist? I think it's This Racist.
I think it is too. And it sounds like from what you're saying that, yes, it almost always is.
Yeah. Go figure. If you have to ask, the answer is most likely yes. So like I said, but with that being said, we also want to provide sort of a sense of normalcy for people that are still at home in quarantine, that have come back from a day of protesting, that need some kind of brief moment of levity that we can provide. So we're going to provide that, but just with the caveat of, we're not attempting to make this about us, and like I said, we really want to amplify, the voices of the black podcasters right now. And so, like I said, we're going to talk about a documentary that we enjoy, that we think is fun, that it's light, and it's something that can sort of distract you if you're having, a hard time, if you've been struggling over the past few days with all of the feels, because processing trauma is really, really exhausting and difficult. So like I said, we're going to provide, a few minutes of comedy for you if you're interested. And
I don't agree to that part. Caveat, it might not be funny.
No, it might not be funny at all
times.
But we will be talking about a documentary that is very lighthearted and interesting and kooky, and it's something that's available on Netflix to, like I said, sort of decompress from the stress of the day. And most likely we will be doing our full show on Sunday, hopefully. So,
Mm-hmm.
and like I said, the topic of what we're going to be discussing, I haven't exactly decided yet, but I'm hoping that it'll be thematically appropriate. So, without further ado, without gilding the lily anymore, we are going to be talking about a documentary that Mitch and I both love very much.
We've seen multiple times together.
We've seen it in multiple states of inebriation, sober, drunk, etc.
There you go.
It is just a delightful piece of documentary film that we just come back to over and over again because it's weird as hell. And it's really well done, and I enjoy it. So, Mitchell, what are we talking about?
We're talking about, and I really hope that I get the title of it correct.
You never get the title correct.
Is it Bathtubs Over Broadway?
Yes, it's called Bathtubs Over Broadway.
Yes, and trust me, you want to see it because as someone who, I would not call myself not a Broadway fan. I actually thoroughly enjoy live musicals.
Yeah.
But I'm not entrenched in the culture, in the, into the scene at all. Leah is. And what this film was throughout the 50s up until into the 90s, really.
Yeah, I think 89, 90 was sort of the last
the last big hoorah.
Of it, yeah.
But there were Broadway-type shows made for corporations. And it was for corporation, like retreats and, what's another word for it?
Management meetings.
Right, management meetings. But they were full-on produced and starring Broadway regulars. Mm-hmm. And you never would know about it. Because the film starts out showing you a writer on the David Letterman show. And the only reason he knows about it is because he did this gag on the Letterman show called Dave's Record Collection, where he would find weird vinyl records. And there were vinyl recordings of all of these shows, and he found them. People have these recordings, and they're fucking valuable. And there's video of them out there. Oh, it's I can't talk anymore, Leah. Please take over. It's amazing.
They're called industrial musicals.
There you go.
And they were produced for everybody from the Iowa Wheat Association to Ford and Purina and
Sears, Ragu,
like all sorts of, just everybody had one. It wasn't like just huge big name things. It's like there was one whole one that they actually end up finding the composer for, and they talk with him, called Diesel Dazzle, and it's just about
I think it was Ford, is that right, or just the diesel overall?
I think it was for Detroit Motors.
That's something like that. Detroit Diesel, I think is what it was.
Yeah, something like that. It had something to do with car manufacturing in Detroit. And it's just this musical called Diesel Dazzle. Mm-hmm. And they're sitting there playing the piano together. Diesel is dazzling, Diesel is dazzling.
Diesel is dazzling now.
It is hilarious. They just get into some of the weirdest shit. Mm-hmm. And then there are interviews with people that used to be in it, and some of these people are more famous than you think they are. Yeah. Florence Henderson, Cheetah Rivera, Martin Short. Mm-hmm. Just
the people who wrote Fiddler on the Roof wrote some industrial musicals.
Yeah, a lot of, like, Kander and Ebb were big into it, and I mean there were just a bunch of writing duos that got into doing that as well, because they spent more money on these industrial musicals in some cases than they did on actual Broadway productions. Like from what the people said that were touring doing these shows, they made way more money than the people on Broadway. Like they were put up in really nice hotels. They were accommodated just incredibly well. And, it might have not have been the most glamorous, and you weren't going to win a Tony Award or anything, but it would pay the fucking bills. And, there were dozens, hundreds of these things. Yeah.
An incredible quality.
Yeah.
Like, this sounds incredibly stupid and silly, and it's like, okay, you're making a musical about ragu pasta sauce. And it's like, no, this is a fucking musical about ragu pasta
like
sauce.
They had like people that went on to be high, like quality, big name Broadway choreographers, dancers that were absolutely just insanely gifted. Just it was a real musical. And then they produced some films off of some of the musicals. And I think one of the stories that this particular, and why it's called Bathtubs Over Broadway, there is a particular musical that he finds some of the cast members of, that they had recordings of it. But I think it was maybe American Standard Plumbing or something like that.
I don't remember.
I think that's the company that put it out. But it's a whole album musical about. It's called The Bathrooms Are Coming.
Yep. And it's apparently super famous. Before you continue, apparently this one was one that really caught on like YouTube and stuff.
Yeah, because
so people
it's so
knew
fucking
about it
ridiculous.
Already. Right. So it's like a big name one, and that's why they named the documentary that. But go ahead, continue.
Yeah, but and he ended up tracking down the woman that sang. There were two of the women, and her husband was in it as well.
Well, they met on that, got married, and then danced to their wedding dance was to one of the terrible songs from
called My Bathroom.
A very good song, but like a stupid fucking song.
Yeah, it's like My Bathroom. My bathroom. It's a very special room.
Yeah. That was their wedding song.
Yeah.
It's so funny.
It's so ridiculous. And it just... And then you have the collectors of these albums, of these industrial musicals, and they're all fucking nuts.
Yep.
They are just the best kind of crazy. Collectors are all weird in a particular way about their subject, about their thing. I get that way about certain things that I like, Muppets and the like, but just the pure glee on the main guy. I don't even remember his name, but he was the one that was the writer on the David Letterman show. But just his pure glee when he sees a new one that he didn't know existed before, just he knows all of the obscure composers and choreographers and just
the best part of the documentary for me is he's in like a library or something, listening and watching. He
was at the Library of Congress.
Library of Congress, right? And they have some of these saved up. And he's just sitting there going through them, and he's like, maybe we'll find a gem in here. And then you hear the audio of one, and he perks up like a dog that saw a squirrel. He perks up and he goes, "That's so-and-so." And it's this guy who was very famous in the industrial musical scene for writing, directing, choreographing, and starring in like dozens of these industrial musicals. He said, "That's his voice right there. Right there, look." And then the credits are rolling, and you see his name, and that's the best part of it for me. It absolutely is.
Like just the pure joy on his face when he
Steve
makes
Young is his name.
A breakthrough on something like that. It's funny. I don't know. And anyway, they ended up, like I said, doing interviews with a lot of the people that orchestrated these things, that wrote these musicals and did the lyrics and all of that stuff. And a lot of them are older. Now obviously because it's been so long since these were prevalent, but I just think it's a really cool thing that he was able to document some of these things, some of these accomplishments before all of the people involved, aren't with us anymore.
That was his big thing, was he wanted to find a bunch and find some of these people because eventually one of them was very old and did die later on.
And Florence Henderson, she was actually interviewed for it and is no longer with us anymore. So I think it's really cool that they were able to preserve and just illuminate the public on some of this just bizarre historical stuff that went on. Because really, unless you were one of the people that were at one of those live events, one of the salespeople or managerial staff, you never would have known any of that was going on, that it was
Yep.
a part of the culture at all.
Yeah, all the records say, like, not for commercial release. Like, they're private, but they recorded all of these vinyls
Yeah.
and gave them out to their employees and stuff.
Yeah, so there would be like a souvenir record album, and that's where a lot of the, recordings come from.
Yep.
And it's really neat. I like it. Just because, like I said, I've watched that documentary an absurd amount of times. Just because
It came out in 2018, and
Yeah.
we've both seen it multiple times now.
it's just one of those things that, like I said, if you're having a bad day, just people singing about bathrooms will make you giggle just a little bit.
It really is one of the best, like, uplifting, good-feeling documentaries I've ever seen.
And it's not pandering in any way. It's not one of those, this child befriended this bunny kind of, you know what I mean? It's not a stretch. It's not trying too hard to be feel good. It's just a little bit quirky. It's a little bit weird, and I liked it a lot. And like I said, I recommend it to people just because it'll hook you. And like I said, it's on Netflix. So if you subscribe to Netflix already, it's there available, no extra charge to watch. And yeah, I just really highly recommend it.
Yeah.
If you're needing something to watch to sort of depressurize, to de-stress, it's just a good, solid documentary that
It's
I
amazing.
would recommend.
It's one of my favorites.
Yep.
And I don't know if I said, but the writer's name is Steve Young.
You did
That's
say
who the
that.
movie, yeah, that's who it centers around. He's the one that found all this stuff, technically, I guess. But anyway, he's the main guy. And it's such a feel-good story. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yep.
So y'all go watch Bathtubs Over Broadway.
Yep.
And tell them who sent you.
Yeah, and also, like I said before, check out those podcasts that I mentioned before. And there's also an Instagram account that I recommend you follow just to find more podcasts that are actually hosted by people of color. It's called Dope Black Podcasts, and they literally have a Instagram page that is full of podcasts with their logos and what their show's about, telling you more about, the hosts and stuff like that. And you can find just about any kind of topic that you're interested in. They've got a podcast that they featured on there. So, resources that we'd recommend you use and listen to.
Yeah. Well, I agree. And, stay safe out there. Watch
Please.
documentaries when you're at home and enjoy them. And we'll keep reviewing them for you and sending you over to them.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, next week we will evaluate Free Solo.
We're not doing Free Solo.
All right. We'll see y'all then.
Bye, y'all.